much for joining us. And you might be thinking right now, hey, hold on, didn't you shut down the show last week after Russell Crowe named a koala chlamydia ward after you? Well, yes, I did. I did do that. In fact, I went to Australia to go work with the koalas, but then I learned two important things. First, HBO contracts are a little harder to get out of than I originally thought. And second, these horny little fuckers are not as cute as you'd expect. They are nasty, they're mean, they're not even technically bears, and all they kept asking was whether or not I knew James Corden, and I don't. I don't know him, but I hear terrible things. So unfortunately for everybody, this show must continue. And we begin tonight with the Trump White House, the only home in America where the next occupant will have to ask, what's the best way to get cum stains out of Abe Lincoln's ghost? Now, yeah, we're back. It was another big week. It was another big week for the Trump administration. They got 3 American detainees out of North Korea, which was great. They pulled out of the Iran deal, which may turn out to be catastrophic. John Kelly said immigrants lack the skills to assimilate, which is ironic coming from someone with the surname Kelly. And the First Lady announced her anti-cyberbullying program, appealing to people to be kind, which was a little jarring considering this.
Denials and deflections. The White House refuses to talk about a joke one employee made about John McCain's terminal illness.
Yeah, it's true. A Trump aide joked that John McCain's opposition to Trump's pick for CIA director didn't matter because he's dying anyway. And that is shocking, but it's also not really surprising. These days, Trump aide says something awful isn't really news, it's just an assumed fact. Like gravity, or the fact that young Sheldon will someday grow up and look nothing like Jim Parsons, and then all hell will break loose because the world can't handle an inconsistency like that. But tonight, let's ignore all of that and instead focus on the busy week for one person in particular, Michael Cohen. Donald Trump's personal lawyer, and a lawyer so shitty, he made Trump say, I need someone good, get me Rudy Giuliani on the phone. Think about that. Think about that. Now, Cohen was already in hot water for making a payment to Stormy Daniels, a potential violation of campaign finance law. And this week, the water got even hotter.
Now to the legal drama swirling around President Trump's attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, reaching a new level tonight over millions of dollars in payments and a serious allegation that Cohen was selling access to President Trump.
Millions of dollars for access to Trump, which is just bizarre, because I naturally assumed that you gained access to the president by finding a golden ticket in your MAGA hat. Oh, don't fall into the river of gravy, little Charlie, or you'll never be the next owner of the racism factory. Now, selling access is a serious allegation, and there is a lot that we still don't know here. What we can say is, shortly after Trump was elected, Michael Cohen suddenly started making a lot of money. It was apparently funneled through a shell company that he created called Essential Consultants, a company for which there is no logo, and even the name arouses suspicion. For starters, this company involves Cohen, who is absolutely not essential. He's also not a consultant. Plus, there's only one of him, so even the S in the company name is a big, dumb lie. And Cohen's pitch to potential clients was pretty brazen.
A Republican strategist says his sales pitch went something like this, quote, I don't know who's been representing you, but you should fire them all. I'm the guy you should hire. I'm closest to the president. I'm his personal lawyer.
And that is a little bit weird, because lawyers don't generally pitch themselves by offering up info on their other clients. It's like a doctor saying, if you hire me, I'll tell you about all of Larry King's birthmarks. Well, first, you're not supposed to be sharing that information, and second, ew! Ew! Now, the most eye-catching business that Cohen drummed up came from Columbus Nova, an investment company linked to a Russian oligarch, which paid him $500,000. And they insist that the oligarch had nothing to do with that payment, and that they hired Cohen for his expertise. But what is Cohen an expert in exactly, other than wearing jackets that look like they should be worn by a leprechaun used car salesman? And it wasn't just Columbus Nova. Big companies with business before the Trump administration gave money to Cohen, including a defense contractor, which paid him $150,000, and pharmaceutical giant Novartis, which agreed to pay him $1.2 million for advice on US healthcare policies. But after only one meeting with him, this happened.
Novartis says it quickly realized Cohen could not provide them the insight they wanted on healthcare matters, and the decision was taken not to engage further. Already under contract, the company still paid Cohen nearly $1 million over the course of a year.
I mean, just think about that. They met Cohen once, and even though he still had months to go on his $1 million contract, they decided, let's never see this guy ever again. They basically paid $1 million not to talk to Michael Cohen, which, when you put it that way, actually starts to sound like kind of a bargain. And Novartis wasn't the only company who put a stupid amount of faith in Cohen's non-existent expertise.
A new report says that on the very first business day of the Trump administration, the president's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, signed a contract with AT&T to receive $600,000 to consult on long-term planning.
It's true. On the first business day of Trump's presidency, Cohen signed a deal with AT&T, who are currently trying to take over our parent company, Time Warner, but they said they only paid him to better understand the president's thinking, which is just ridiculous. Because if you want to understand this president's thinking, simply have a donkey kick you in the head 5 times and then watch Fox News for 72 hours straight. That'll give you a pretty good idea about what's going on in his mind. Now, we probably don't yet know the full significance of all of these payments, but I would argue that, at heart, these companies got exactly what they paid for, because they wanted to understand how the Trump administration worked. And think about it. They put their trust in a political novice who turned out to be a total moron, and who was actually just bilking them for personal gain. So, you wanted to know how the Trump administration works? Congratulations, you just got a fucking masterclass. And now, this.
And now, local news gets real about Mother's Day.
So Mother's Day shouldn't be just another day where we do the same old thing over and over again. Brian, what are your plans for Mother's Day?
My wife is going to leave me with 2 children, and I will figure it out. Those are my plans.
Such a nice gift you're giving her.
Yeah, no, I wasn't given a choice. She just told me, I'm leaving. Good luck to you. So, yeah, I think she's going to have lunch. Yeah, not a choice.
What are you going to do?
For my wife? Let her sleep and not talk for 30 seconds until she's started drinking coffee.
That's it?
Hooters has free meals for your mom if your wife or mother is okay with going to Hooters on Mother's Day.
Every year we say, Mom, we're going to go walking with you. We're going to hang out. And she's like, oh, I think I could just, go get a spa gift card, a massage or something. We're like, thanks, Mom. Maybe that says something about you, Kate.
We were standing in the kitchen, our eyes met, and then she gave me the stink eye. That's what happened. It was real awkward.
She gave you the, it's this Sunday, you better get on the ball.
I felt bad.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns Venezuela. Not to be confused with Benazela, because that is the hot new celebrity couple that's just Ben Affleck fucking a vuvuzela. Yeah, he's happy. He's happy. You should be happy for him. Now, Venezuela is the country famous for giving the world oil, 7 Miss Universes, 6 Miss Worlds, and, of course, most importantly, 1 Wilma Valderrama, who I like to think of as the Miss Universe of That 70s Show. Now, over the last few years, it has seemed like every time Venezuela has been on the news, it's because something awful has been happening.
Food riots and looting. This is now the only daily diet Venezuelans can count on.
Violent protesters stormed the National Assembly Sunday, even punching some lawmakers.
Chaos in Caracas. A stolen police helicopter fires on Venezuela's Supreme Court.
The clashes in Caracas between protesters and police are looking more like all-out war.
It's true. Things in Venezuela have been extremely grim. So fair warning here, this is not going to be one of those feel-good last week tonight stories like Slippers, or Everything Looks Okay at the Pudding Factory, or a genocide, but it's only happening to balloon animals. And it has been hard to keep up with events in Venezuela due to the hurricane of shit that we've all been dealing with here. Although, if you follow conservative media at all, you may have seen it frequently painted as the inevitable, dire consequences of a socialist government. For a case in point, just watch this InfoWars reporter quizzing an extremely chill Bernie Sanders supporter.
You know Venezuela, right?
Heard of it.
A majority of the country is currently eating rats, while their politicians are drinking champagne on a daily basis. Well, I'm saying, if Bernie Sanders were president, right, and he wanted to bring the same ideas as for socialism into this country, do you think that we would benefit?
Yeah.
But I just told you Venezuela's eating rats.
But I just want people to have health care, honey. I don't want, like...
Well...
Same thing Hugo Chavez.
Oh my God.
When he was taking power in Venezuela.
You people have, like, worms in your brain, honestly.
That is not great news for that InfoWars reporter. She essentially just got served by sassy Popeye. But what you do have there is a nice distillation of the current level of political discourse in America. Two people who don't really know what they're talking about, condescending to each other nonsensically until one of them lands a sick burn. But what is happening in Venezuela is not just extremely important, it is absolutely worth paying attention to, because this is not just a story about socialism. There are plenty of socialist countries that look nothing like Venezuela. It's a story about epic mismanagement. So epic that a nation of 31 million people with the largest oil reserves in the world have been forced to resort to some pretty creative forms of protest.
Social media ablaze for the past few days, encouraging protesters to fill jars and bags with human feces. This is one of our last options, says this masked man. We are calling it Puputov cocktails.
Yes, Puputov cocktails. Named, of course, after the Soviet premier Vyacheslav Pupatov, who was infamous for pooping in jars and throwing them at people. Little bit of history for you there. And while that is funny, because, you know, it's poop, it is also desperate people resorting to a desperate measure. And given that, next Sunday, Venezuela is having their presidential election, tonight, we thought we'd check in on what's been happening there to try and understand how Venezuela got into this mess and how, despite making it even worse, their current president, Nicolas Maduro, seen here absolutely going to town on a nana, is almost certainly going to win, despite having the support of only around a fifth of the population. And to understand anything about present-day Venezuela, you really have to start with Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, shown here looking understandably smug about the fact that he's got a bird in a hat on his shoulder. Now, Chavez was massively popular in Venezuela, beloved for both his generous social programs and his larger-than-life personality.
Every Sunday, he staged marathon TV broadcasts that sometimes ran up to 8 hours on his show, Aldo Presidente. The show featured special guests, dance numbers, and prize giveaways.
Over here, we have flat-screen TVs. It's the opposite of capitalism.
Well, hold on there, Hugo. Because if giving away flat-screen TVs is truly the opposite of capitalism, then the most successful socialist leader in history is Comrade Drew Carey. Now, Chavez could act the way that he did because Venezuela was oil-rich, and over the course of his presidency, he took more and more state control over their national oil company, enabling him to fund programs benefiting the poor. And when that company protested some of the changes that he was making, he responded by using his TV show to address its executives directly.
Despido. I'm firing the following people. Mr. Juan Fernandez, you are fired from Petroleum of Venezuela. Eddie Ramirez, thank you very much. You are fired.
Also, Mariana Rodriguez, you are not fired, but if you don't stop talking to your boyfriend on speakerphone, you absolutely will be. And Mateo Martinez, if you use the office kitchen to microwave fish one more time, so help me, I'm going to have you fucking murdered. Now, to be fair to Chavez, many of his social programs were initially effective. During his tenure, the poverty rate was nearly halved. And to this day, many Venezuelans revere Chavez to a dramatic degree.
The late president's eyes are painted on public buildings, as if watching over the revolution. This man even tattooing the eyes onto his forehead.
That's the image. The eyes of our supreme commander, Hugo Rafael Chavez Frias. The eyes that see the world, the whole world.
Now that is dedication right there. I like my president so much, I want him to watch me masturbate for the rest of my life. Because that's what those eyes are going to see. They'll see other things, but they're also seeing that. And the thing is, some of Chavez's programs could have been sustainable if he pursued a sound economic policy and run a tight ship. But not only did he stop saving oil revenues in a rainy day fund, he also oversaw a government that Transparency International found to be the most corrupt country in Latin America. And remember, Latin America has Colombia in it. A country where the only campaign finance law is, please report all bribes consisting of more than 10 kilos of cocaine. Still, As long as the price of oil went up forever and Chavez never died, the cracks could have been papered over. Unfortunately, in 2014, the price of oil plummeted from over $100 a barrel to just $50 a barrel, just 1 year after Chavez plummeted from being alive to being very much dead. And here is where Maduro, the big banana fan, comes in, because he was Chavez's hand-picked successor, but unfortunately had neither his booming economy nor his charisma, although he has desperately tried to make up for that, even going so far as to tell people that he'd received messages from the spirit of Chavez who'd visited him in the form of a little bird. It's a story he's told repeatedly and sometimes even throws in sound effects.
Y de repente entró un pajarito chiquitico y me dio 3 vueltas aquí arriba. Se paró en una viga de madera aquí y empezó a silbar. Yo sentí el espíritu de él. Lo sentí ahí como dándonos una bendición.
Now, what I like the most about that, other than the whistling, which I like very much, is the idea that when powerful leaders die, they become birds. Because that is a pretty humiliating second act. I led my people to greatness, and now I will bath my lunch into my child's mouth and fly into a glass window. And look, I don't want to say that Maduro's charm offensive hasn't been working, but just watch this moment from a TV appearance where he was reading messages from viewers live on air.
Moises David tells me, Nicolás Maduro, suck on it. You suck on your own. You can suck yourself.
Yes, that's right. Maduro essentially appeared on a segment of Celebrities Read Mean Tweets completely by accident. And the thing is, it's easy to see why Maduro has pissed people off, because he has managed Venezuela's economic crisis in the worst possible way. He's doubled down on many of Chavez's most unsound policies, like unrealistic currency and price controls, while attempting to make up for missing revenue by simply creating more money. And as a result, inflation has exploded, with the IMF forecasting 13,000% inflation for 2018. And to give you an idea of just how ridiculous that can look, this was a trip to a Venezuelan market last year.
The currency is so devalued, some shopkeepers weigh the money rather than waste time counting. And if residents are lucky enough to find food on the shelves, prices are out of sight.
This plantain costs what your house cost 25 years ago.
Wow. I mean, there's clearly 2 options there. Either inflation is completely out of hand, or that is one incredible plantain. I mean, world-class plantain. And inflation is just one of many reasons why many Venezuelans are struggling to find or even afford basic necessities like medicine or food. And those shortages have had some terrible consequences.
This food shortage is widespread. Over the last year, 3/4 of the population has lost an average of almost 20 pounds.
Look how fat I used to be. This is how many holes I had to make in my belt on the Maduro diet.
Yes, the Maduro diet. That is actually now a commonly used phrase in Venezuela, and it's a very healthy-sounding term for a truly horrifying situation. It's like saying Jim Jones was the pioneer of the Jonestown juice cleanse. And it is not like Maduro isn't aware that people are starving. In fact, during one of his media appearances, a reporter noticed that the video feed cut away every time Maduro helped himself to the plates of charcuterie and cakes. So he knew that eating would look insensitive, although those camera cutaways haven't always worked, because just watch this clip that went viral last year and know that what he's saying here doesn't matter. What's important for you to remember is he's about to think that the camera is off him.
Para salir a unas tapas. Adelante.
Presidente, un gran abrazo y felicitaciones a los gobernadores y gobernadoras electas y a todo nuestro pueblo.
Yeah, he just housed an empanada in front of a starving nation. And come on, Maduro, a nationwide famine is no time for 4th meal. And if you think that is the most tone-deaf reaction to Venezuela's mass food shortages, just wait until you see him do some pretty insensitive crowd work.
Why are you so skinny, Gustavo? Have you been jogging? What happened to him? Maduro's diet. Maduro's diet makes you hard. No need for Viagra.
Wow. That is the most awkward presidential attempt to be in on the joke, since Herbert Hoover claimed that Hoover towns make you wet without the need for cornmeal or castor oil. They didn't totally understand how vaginas works back then. And even when the Maduro government has tried to help, it's done it in a truly ham-fisted way. For instance, Maduro has proposed a so-called rabbit plan, basically a program to encourage Venezuelans to breed and eat bunnies. But when people started putting bows on them and keeping them as pets instead, his administration gave a pretty callous correction.
A rabbit is not a pet. It's 2.5 kilos of meat that is high in protein with no cholesterol.
Holy shit! A rabbit is just 2.5 kilos of meat. That sounds less like a government pronouncement and more like a tank top Marlon Brando used to wear back in his clubbing days. And now, as for economic policy, Maduro has generally lived in complete denial. His most recent plan to address rampant inflation was to introduce a new version of their currency, the bolivar, just with 3 zeros lopped off the end. And in case any part of you thinks that might actually fix their inflation problem, we asked Yale economist Robert Shiller if that's how money works. Take a look.
No, that's not how money works.
Thanks, Robert, thanks. I appreciate it. It's good to know. And in the absence of solutions, Maduro has reached for the next best thing, blaming someone else. Over the years, he suggested that the United States was responsible for injecting Chavez with cancer. He said that the US was sabotaging Venezuelan ATMs, and he's chalked up protest against him to this.
This is part of a scheme of non-conventional war that the U.S. has perfected throughout recent decades.
OK, so here's the thing there. America has undoubtedly done some awful things in Central and South America. We've backed coup attempts, juntas and atrocities in Chile, Argentina and Guatemala. But refreshingly, what's happening in Venezuela is actually not our fault. Accusing America of creating Venezuela's crisis is about as fair as accusing O.J. Simpson of murdering Princess Diana. I'm not saying it will be completely out of character. It just happens to not be true in this particular instance. So that's basically what I'm saying. And yet, despite all of this, Maduro is about to dominate this election like he absolutely dominated that banana. So how is that possible? Well, he's basically bent Venezuela's democratic process to his will. Back in 2015, when his party lost control of the National Assembly, he responded by stacking the Supreme Court with 13 new justices and then simply created a whole new assembly.
President Nicolás Maduro wants to create a political assembly with vast power to rewrite the Constitution and potentially dismantle the democratically elected legislature. All of the candidates today are Maduro supporters, including his wife and son.
Now, just think about the sheer scale of what Maduro did there. That'd be like if here, Trump put a bunch of his friends on the Supreme Court, who then happily allowed him to create a second Congress that outranks the real Congress, and whose members include Melania and Eric, and which, by the way, you just know he'd call Dongress. You know he would do that. And you know it. And please take that down before he gets any ideas. I already regret bringing it up. Now, on top of that, Maduro has either jailed or barred from public office a number of his political opponents and has even turned down help from other countries and agencies, including food and medicine. He has turned down food and medicine, telling Venezuelans that humanitarian aid is part of a conspiracy to overthrow his government, all of which has left Venezuelans feeling so hopeless that nearly 1 million of them have left the country over the past 2 years, and many of those who've remained are now at their breaking point.
Oye, que esto lo sepa todo el mundo, nos estamos muriendo de hambre, los venezolanos. Esto no es posible, estamos en una dictadura, pero disfrazada. Todos son testigos, hay gente que no podemos hablar. ¿Por qué? Porque nos tienen amordazados. Si tú hablas, mandan a los colectivos a que te agredan, a que te maten.
That's absolutely horrifying. And when you listen to her, it starts to hit you that poo-poo tough cocktails might actually turn out to be pretty fucking restrained. And the most frustrating thing here is there aren't a lot of great options to help. The Trump administration has imposed some sanctions and is considering more, but if they're not extremely careful, those could wind up causing even more hardship. So, at this point, seeing as Maduro won't listen to reason or to the will of his own people, perhaps it's time to call in the one voice that we know he'll listen to. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a bird.
Hola, Maduro. It's me, a bird. Remember, we spoke a few years back? Okay, and if you're thinking this is just Wilmer Valderrama in a bird suit, well, I used to think I was Hugo Chavez, so you're not exactly the authority on what's birds. But listen up, buddy, because I'm 2.5 kilos of high protein and meat. And I'm here to tell you, you're in some serious trouble, compadre. It's not a good sign when the people are throwing their poop at you. I should know. I'm a bird. Come on, man. I invented the poo-poo-top cocktails. Yeah, that's right. Every time a bird poops on you, you should know it was a political statement. Also that we aimed and thought it was funny. Maduro, the whole world can see what mess you are making. Even TV hosts here in America, like that idiot.
Oh, shit. Oh, look, I was just having a little snack.
That's just bad timing, Zazu. The point is, Maduro, you need to accept humanitarian aid and cool it with the dictator stuff. Or I've got a poo-poo-top cocktail with your name on it right here. All right. This is it for me. And because I am a real, actual bird, I'm going to exit with effortless beauty and grace.
Yes, indeed. That's our show. Thank you so much for